What is up, guys? Pie Muffin here, and today this isn't gonna draw a lot of my usual fans here because this isn't a Tales thing, but I wanted to kind of just put my thoughts into this because, I mean, I'd write everything on Twitter, but I don't want to spoil a bunch of people who plan on seeing the movie this weekend. But we're gonna be talking about Dragon Ball Super Broly here. I just got back from seeing it in theaters, and I just kind of want to talk about my thoughts on it. And honestly, my review is going to be a lot different than a lot of other people's because um, I am not someone who I don't think there was a single point of the movie where I really felt hyped. Like I kind of just sat, in normal position. There were people in the theater screaming. There were people excited. I just kind of watched it. I don't know if it's I kind of talked about this on Twitter that I just feel like maybe I don't want to really say standards, but I've just watched so many anime movies in the last few years that it's just like this wasn't something that really grabbed at me. And this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, I would recommend clicking off this video unless you don't care about spoilers, because this isn't going to be a non-spoiler review. Most of my issues stem from the narrative of this film. Now, obviously, the stuff with the backstory, I guess, was okay. There's a lot of issues narrative-wise with the backstory, but Vegeta vs. Broly was cool. The animation was good. The fight was good. Goku vs. Broly, same thing. Animation, fight was good, although I think I do like Vegeta vs. Broly better, because I just think the fighting was more interesting. And then obviously, we got Gogeta vs. Broly, which, it was cool from, what you can see of it. Okay, so one thing I will point out that I had a big issue with was the CG. When Gogeta and Broly went into the alternate dimension, I had a huge issue with that. The CG just looked super ugly to me, and I really was not a fan of it. And there was some, when Goku Blue was fighting Broly, there was some CG there that really didn't look good to me either. I'm really just not a fan of CG in anime movies. Maybe for like one scene for a few seconds, but when you put there was probably a total of like, I'd say 7 or 8 minutes of CG in this movie, and I just was not a fan of it. Story-wise, alright, let's get the story stuff out of the way that I wasn't a fan of. So, first off, in the Dragon Ball Minus stuff that was adapted, I was fine with the Broly stuff, Broly gets exiled because King Vegeta didn't want him to outshine his son. Cool. I was fine with that. That's all we needed. The whole stuff with Bardock and Guinea sending Goku away, that wasn't really needed in this movie because they have this whole line where Guinea is like, "Don't forget us, Kakarot," and obviously Goku doesn't remember his parents or anything. So I originally thought, before I knew the spoilers for this film, that they were going to do something with Goku learning his heritage, maybe learning who Bardock and Guinea were, and maybe that being an important plot point, but it wasn't. So his whole backstory with his parents was utterly pointless in this movie. I liked the backstory stuff. I liked seeing the Ginyu Force. I liked seeing Zarbon and Dodoria. King Cold, that was cool. I liked the whole thing with King Cold kind of saying he's retiring and handing his army over to Frieza. That stuff was really cool. I was fine with that. But like I said, the whole Bardock stuff really didn't... I guess they just wanted to throw the rest of Dragon Ball Minus in there, but I just really didn't see a point to it because it didn't have a point in the plot later in the movie. Like, Goku never learned about this. It's never spoken about who Goku's parents were, so why did it matter? So yeah, that's my whole thing with the backstory stuff. Having narrative issues there. Broly is a much more sympathetic character, which I did like. I like this Broly definitely better than the old Broly. But my issue... So, let's talk about the good stuff first. I liked the interactions between Lemo and Shilai with Broly. I liked that they were kind of like teaching him what it kind of meant to be a human and not like a barbarian Tarzan type character. And I did like that the whole thing with his thing around his waist, the little coat... It's kind of disgusting because it's actually a creature's ear that he had befriended. But what I did like was that he had something that was special to him and it made him more of a human character. But my issue with when the actual fighting started was that Broly's, like, there was no real, how do I really put this? Because obviously there was a struggle. He can't control his power. You know, once he goes berserk, he's done. Like, that's it. But the whole thing with that was that it's like once he was in his like rage state, like obviously he's not yelling Kakarot, 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 but there was no speaking. And obviously, you know, I understand he loses control. He's not in control of himself, but it just like it just felt like too much. I don't know. I felt like there should have been some struggles where he was like going in and out of it, and everything. And I did like the stuff where Goku was like, you know, we fought tons of enemies, and this was a really cool shot where we saw, in this movie style of artwork, the Shintai design, we saw all the villains up to this point, because Goku was like, yeah, we fought our share of villains too, and it went like from Frieza to all of Cell's forms to all of Boo's forms. So I did like, it went a little too fast. I couldn't see all the characters that were there, but it was cool. So that was cool. And like I said, the fighting was great. Now, in terms of the fighting, I feel like there was too much for too long without having a break. Like, from when Vegeta starts fighting Broly all the way to when they teleport to Piccolo, like, I'd say that's a good, like, what, 20 to 30 minutes of straight fighting. And, you know, after a while, you're just like, okay, can they, like, slow down for a bit? Maybe have, like, a conversation? You know, kind of like the shows actually do. Like, there's a time where it's just too much fighting for too long. And that was just kind of like, I was kind of like, all right. You know, I like the fighting, but, you know, take a break and do something for a second so people can, you know, rest their eyes or whatever and just not look at constant fighting for so long. Obviously, I like the fusion part. That was really funny. You know, with them screwing up and then making fat Gogeta and skinny Gogeta. That was really cool. Obviously, Piccolo's role in this movie was very minor. That's another thing. And obviously, we can, you know, the reason that none of the other characters are in this movie was because they wanted this to be the story of Goku, Vegeta, and Broly. But it's like, it's one of those things where if you're headcanon it, how would no one sense this guy's power? How would no one fly to the scene, because other than Piccolo, you know, sensing it? How would Gohan, Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, like everybody not sense this happening when this guy is stronger than anyone they've ever faced before? Besides maybe Jiren, that's kind of a gray area. We don't know who's stronger, Broly or Jiren, but you would think that they would easily sense him, especially when there's volcanoes erupting in the Arctic. You know, you would think they would feel the planet shaking just from the sheer power of that. But obviously, you know, the way you think about that, the writers didn't put them in the movie. So that's that. Okay. Next thing that was a little silly, and it didn't really feel like it had much weight to it, was how Frieza killed Paradis. Now, obviously, you know, he thought back to how he blew up Krillin, and that caused Goku to go into a Super Saiyan, so he thought a similar thing might work on Broly. But it was so quick. There was no emotional build-up to it. There was no, like... It was just like, Frieza was like, pop, you're dead. And then he was like, oh no, Broly, look, your father got hit by a stray blast. Which, I mean, obviously Broly's not all right in his head, so he wouldn't have seen that Frieza blasted him. But I mean, it was one of Frieza's, like, tiny blasts. Obviously, the blasts that Goku and Broly were using were not that small, so whatever. But yeah, just that whole scene just seemed silly, and there was no, like, emotional build-up to Broly transforming. He just transformed. He looked over and then was like, pop, I'm transforming. It wasn't like, oh, my father, like, none of that. It was just, I was like, okay, well, I guess this is happening. And then obviously from that point forward, that's when, here's the thing with the whole Vegeta thing, and, you know, a lot of fans are happy. It's like, oh, Vegeta didn't get stomped out for once. While that is true, he did stop fighting. It was kind of like a trade-off thing. So obviously Vegeta fights in base, then he fights in Super Saiyan, then he fights in God, and then Broly gets to the point where he's actually pushing back Super Saiyan God Vegeta, but then Goku is like, oh, it's my turn, and then that's when Vegeta just powers down and stands on the sideline with Bulma until Broly goes, you know, berserk Super Saiyan, and that's when Vegeta jumps back in, you know, 30 minutes later. Um, so while Vegeta didn't lose, he just kind of got sidelined, and I just felt like his fight was kind of not as meaningful the way it ended, because it was like Vegeta was just like, all right, I got tagged out, so whatever. Um, I'm just trying to think. I did like the comedy aspect of the two wishes. Bulma wanted to wish to be 5 years younger so it wouldn't be too obvious to people. And then Frieza wanted to be 5 centimeters taller, once again, so it wouldn't be too obvious to people. I like that whole comedy aspect of it. That was really funny. Now, for the actual fight with Gogeta, like I said, I'm not a fan of the CG, so when they went to the alternate dimension, it was Gogeta versus Broly. I was just kind of like, this really doesn't look good. This actually looks really ugly. If they were in the alternate dimension and it wasn't CG, I probably would have been more fine with it. But it just looked really ugly to me. Now, for the actual fight with Gogeta and Broly, excuse me, I think my main issue with it is the issue I always have when it comes to fusion, at least with Goku and Vegeta. Like, obviously, with Gotenks versus Super Buu, it was a pretty even fight for the most part. But the issue I had here was that once Gogeta appeared, there was never a point where Broly could stand up to him. At any time Broly kind of got a little bit stronger, Gogeta would just transform. So he fought Broly in base form for a little bit. Then he was like, alright, time to take things up a notch. Go Super Saiyan. He fought in Super Saiyan for a little while. Then he went up to Blue. And then once he was in Blue, he was just playing with Broly. Broly didn't stand a chance. And it never feels like same thing with Vegito. Like, obviously, when Vegito fought Merge Zamasu, there was a little more of a... I feel like there was more of a pushback than Gogeta versus Broly. Gogeta versus Broly, like, Gogeta was just stomping Broly out. Like, there was never... I think Broly landed 1 or 2 hits, but it barely phased Gogeta. He got knocked back for a second, then was like, alright, let's continue. And then, obviously, Vegito versus Super Buu was just a total wash. So, I wasn't really a fan of how, it's just like, it didn't really feel like a fight once they fused. It just felt like a one-sided beatdown. And that honestly feels kind of boring to me. And, people are entitled to, a lot of people are, like, super excited. They're like, oh, this is the best anime movie of all time. And some people are even saying it's the best movie of all time. And while I disagree, everyone's hype levels are bound to be high because this is a beautifully animated Dragon Ball movie. And the fights were dope, but I don't think dope fights and great animation make a great movie when the narrative for the movie is not so great. So obviously we had the Dragon Ball Minus stuff, which, like I said, the Broly stuff was fine. We just needed to see the Broly stuff. That's all we needed to see. It was a cool little, like, shot to see Kid Vegeta and Kid Raditz and then, Nappa with hair, but that wasn't necessary either. Same thing with the Bardock stuff. So all we needed to see was the Broly stuff, and then from right when Broly and them come to Earth, like, there's no more story. It's literally just a fight, which I guess is cool. That's good for Dragon Ball because that's what Dragon Ball is. But like I said, I've watched so much anime over the years that I expect more from anime than just dope fights. Like, I want a decent story. And I don't know, maybe my bias is kind of taking over because I do wish other characters had been in this film, even though I know, this is a story about the pure-blooded Saiyans from Planet Vegeta, which Goku doesn't even fit in this story. Like, what Goku versus Broly doesn't make any sense because in this storyline, Goku had no ties to Broly. He was just there to fight when Vegeta stopped fighting. Like, this whole beef should have just been Broly versus Vegeta, but they didn't even go that way for very long. And eventually even Paradis was like, oh crap, King Vegeta was probably right. Broly is a danger to the entire universe. So that whole thing, the whole revenge on Vegeta plot point didn't even last for very long. So I felt like that didn't hold much weight either. And then obviously the movie comes to a close with, Sheila making the wish to save Broly because Gogeta was going to fire off a full power Super Kamehameha and kill Broly. But she used the Dragon Balls to send Broly back to Planet Vampa. And then her and Limo went there after the whole thing was settled. and Goku shows up at the end to basically bring them a house and bring them food and provisions and stuff like that. And then the last line was like, the whole purpose obviously for Goku is that he wants someone strong to fight. So Broly's gonna be another Jiren, another Hit, another Vegeta, another Piccolo, Tien, just someone for Goku to fight against to get stronger. Now here's the thing with this. Goku is saying how he wants to train Broly and how he would like to help him, kind of learn his power. But it's like, we're like 3 years from the time skip and he's gonna have to train Oob anyway. So what's the point of this whole, oh, I'm gonna train Broly, like, arc? If they even do anything with it. So it's just like, we know Goku's gonna train Oob once the time skip is over. So if Dragon Ball Super comes back, or if a Dragon Ball series comes back on the air, obviously we're not gonna have a ton of time for all this in-between stuff before Goku goes off with Oob. Which really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because it's like, obviously you can see Broly being somebody who has way more potential than Oob. I mean, obviously they can write it any way they want with Oob in the future, but it just feels like, based on what we know, someone like Broly would have so much more potential than the reincarnation of Majin Buu. And then the last thing I want to talk about is that last line Goku has, and it's just kind of like, okay, this was kind of just thrown in there. They ask Goku his name, and as he's walking away before he goes back home, he's like, my name is Goku, but you, Broly, you can call me Kakarot. And it's like, okay, why does that matter? I guess because they're Saiyans, it's like a way of pride to be like, okay, you can call me this because you're a Saiyan, but Goku hates being called Kakarot. I mean, he eventually got used to a Vegeta, but I mean, he's like, I'm not Kakarot, I'm Goku, I grew up on Earth, so I guess Goku's accepting his Saiyan heritage more, but even though he didn't learn anything about it in this movie, all he did was kind of fight Broly, so that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So overall, I give the movie a 7.5 out of 10 because the animation and the fights were dope, but it's losing 2.5 of that just because it's like, the story there wasn't much of a story at all. The story was basically just, okay, Broly was sent away as a kid, and now he came to Earth to get revenge on King Vegeta, but then that whole plot of getting revenge on King Vegeta stops halfway through the movie. And then it's just a mindless fight to stop him from destroying the Earth, basically. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I really have to say about this movie. Like I said, I did have a good time watching it. It's just there were a lot of kind of, issues I had like here and there with the movie. Hopefully they do more when the series comes back, or if they have more movies planned. We know they have something in the works. And, people get on me on Twitter all the time for having these kind of thoughts, but it's like, I want them to use the original cast more. So whether it's a movie or the series, when it comes back, obviously we know the current manga arc is just Goku, Vegeta, and Majin Buu. So at least they're using Majin Buu for something, but hopefully they can do better than they did in the Tournament of Power with the supporting cast now. Even though I don't like calling them that, because they were the main cast in original Dragon Ball, but now they're the supporting cast. So if you can give someone like Broly an insane power-up in one movie, you can give anyone a power-up, Saiyan or not. So that is it. Don't forget to subscribe for more if you're new to the channel. I will see you all next time. Have a wonderful day, everyone.